I have met many people in my life. They are intelligent. They are hardworking. They have dreams. And almost all of them tell me the same thing. I want to become the best in my field. But then very few people actually do. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunities, but because they don't understand one very simple truth. Becoming the best is not something you want, it's something you are willing to pay the price for. Have you ever wondered why some people start out just like you, even worse than you, but a few years later they are far ahead while you are still there, busy, trying, but not really moving forward? I have been in that place. There was a time in my life when I worked a lot but got very little in return. I was busy but not effective. I hoped, but I had no system. And then I realized something that changed my entire life. Success is not about doing more. It's about becoming a different person. The best people do not think like the crowd. They do not live by emotions. They do not wait for inspiration. They run their lives by principles. In this video, I will share with you the principles that helped me and many people I have taught become the best in their fields. Not by luck, not by temporary motivation, but by discipline, daily habits, and standards of living that never drop. If you feel like you have potential but haven't broken through yet, if you are working hard but haven't been recognized, if you know you were born to do more than what you are doing now, stay until the end of the video, because principle number 7 is exactly what I applied to completely turn my career and my life around. And maybe this is not just a video you watch, but a decision you begin to live differently starting today. Principle 1, raise your standards before you chase results. I want you to understand one thing right from the start. Results are never the starting point. So many people tell me, Jim, when I get results, I'll get more serious. When I see progress, I'll be more disciplined. When I succeed, I'll live differently. But that is the mindset of the majority, and the majority never become the best. I learned this very early. When my life was still a mess, I worked hard, but my results were still poor. I blamed circumstances, the economy, and luck, until one mentor said something to me that I will never forget. If you want your life to get better, don't wish for conditions to change. Change yourself. From that moment on, I began to understand the problem was not what I had, but the standards I was willing to accept. Most people live by very low standards, but they don't call them low. They call them normal. Showing up to work a few minutes late, normal. Making promises to yourself and not keeping them, normal. Knowing what's right but doing what's easy, normal. But those small, normal choices, day after day, quietly decide who you become. You are not limited by your ability. You are limited by the standards you allow yourself to keep. The best people do not wait for motivation to act. They don't ask, do I feel inspired today? They ask, what is my standard and am I living up to it? I want you to picture it like this. Your standard is like the water line of your life. You might have an amazing day, but you will always return to that water line. If your standard is low, even when you push yourself up, life will pull you back down. But when you raise your standard, everything changes. You stop negotiating with procrastination. You stop bargaining with discipline. You stop accepting half-done work. Not because you enjoy doing hard things, but because you no longer accept anything lower than the person you want to become. I have met people who are very smart. They read many books. They know a lot of theory, but their lives don't move forward. Not because they lack knowledge, but because their standard of action is too low. They know they should wake up early, but they don't. They know they should train, but they delay. They know they should focus, but they still let themselves get distracted. And then they ask, why am I not becoming the best? The answer is very simple. You cannot rise above the standard you live by every day. The best people don't do more than you. They simply don't allow themselves to do less. Their standards are very clear. If they start, they finish. If they promise, they keep their word even to themselves. If they choose a path, they don't walk it halfway. They don't need anyone watching. They don't need praise. Their standards come from within, not from outside approval. I often tell my students this: your life will not change until you become uncomfortable with your old standards. Not uncomfortable with other people, not jealous of someone else's success, but uncomfortable knowing you could do better and didn't. That moment is critical, because that's when you begin to raise your standard. Raising your standard does not mean doing everything perfectly. It means you no longer allow yourself to quit easily. You no longer accept living below your potential. You no longer justify habits that are pulling you down. And here's the interesting part. When you raise your standard, you don't need more motivation. High standards create action on their own. You don't need to ask, should I do it today? Because the answer has already been decided. This is who I am. Look at any field. The best in sports, the best in business, the best in the arts. They don't wait for a good day to practice. They don't wait for the right mood. They operate by standards, not emotions. Emotions change every day. Standards do not. I want to ask you a very direct question. What level of results are you demanding from life? While your daily standards are at what level? You cannot demand first-class results with third-class habits. You cannot dream of excellence while still allowing yourself to live comfortably. Be honest with yourself. Which standard in your life do you know needs to be raised, but you've been avoiding for a long time? Not all of them. Just one standard. Your wake-up time, the way you work, the way you keep promises to yourself. Raise one standard and hold it. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. And when you begin to raise your standards, you will realize something very important. You don't need to show off. You don't need to talk much. You begin building in silence. And that is exactly where we go next, the place where the best are made. Principle 2, build in silence when no one is watching. There is a phase in life that very few people like to talk about. Not because it isn't important, but because there is nothing to show. I call it the silent phase. No one knows what you are doing. No one applauds. No one acknowledges you. No one asks how you're doing. You work, but there are no spotlights. You try, but there is no audience. You move forward, but no one notices. And right here, most people quit. I have seen this repeat over and over again. People start with high energy. They are excited. They talk about their goals. They want to be seen. But then a few weeks go by. No one pays attention. No one cares. No one praises them. And they begin to ask, why am I doing this? That question is the first sign that they are doing it for recognition, not for becoming. I learned a lesson very early. If you are not willing to build in silence, you will not stand firm when it's time to be seen. The best don't start by showing up. They start by preparing. Preparing when no one demands it. Preparing when no one forces them. Preparing when there is no external pressure. Because real discipline only shows up when no one is watching. Let me say this very clearly. If you only do well when someone is watching, you don't have discipline. You only have a performance habit. If you only try hard under the spotlight, you are not building competence. You are feeding your ego. Real competence is forged on days no one sees, in mornings no one knows about, in decisions no one praises. I want you to imagine this. Building in silence is like laying the foundation of a building. No one takes photos of the foundation. No one praises the foundation. But if the foundation is weak, the building will collapse no matter how beautiful it looks. So many people want to decorate the upper floors. While the foundation isn't even dry, they want fast results, early recognition, to be called great before they are ready. And then when pressure comes, they break. I went through years working while no one cared. No fame, no applause, no guarantees, just me and the standards I had set for myself. There were days I asked myself, will anyone ever notice? But then I realized that question didn't matter. The more important question was, am I becoming the person I committed to become? The best don't measure progress by attention. They measure it by consistency. Did I keep my standard today? Did I do the work even when no one saw? Did I continue even without feedback? Every time you do the right thing in silence, you cast a vote for your future self. No one sees that vote, but you do. Many people leave the silent phase, not because they are weak, but because they misunderstand it. They think, no one sees me, that means I'm not progressing. But the truth is, most growth makes no noise. Seeds don't make sound when they sprout. Roots don't make noise when they grow deep, but those quiet things are what hold the entire system together. I often say, if you can't be patient in obscurity, you don't deserve the spotlight. The spotlight exposes everything. It exposes both skill and lack of preparation. And only those who have built long enough in silence won't be blinded by the light. Look at your life right now. Is there something you are delaying just because no one is watching yet? Training habits, skills that need sharpening, daily work that needs to be done. Are you waiting for recognition, or are you building competence? If no one is watching, no one is praising, no one is recognizing, What would you still do every day? That is your path. What you do when no one sees will decide who you are when everyone looks. And when you begin to build in silence, something strange will happen. You will no longer need external motivation. You will no longer depend on praise. You begin to operate on your own rhythm, and that rhythm, when repeated long enough, becomes your greatest strength. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. Principle 3, consistency beats talent every time. I have met many talented people in my life. They speak intelligently. They understand things very quickly. They see what others don't see. And then, so many of them go nowhere at all. Not because they lack ability, but because they don't show up long enough. Talent impresses, but consistency creates results. I want you to understand this very clearly. Life does not reward the person who is the best for one day. Life rewards the person who repeats the right thing every day. You can have one explosive week, one highly driven month, but if you can't hold the rhythm, everything will disappear. I have seen this happen too many times. Someone comes to me and says, "Jim, I know I have potential. I don't doubt that." But then I ask them, "What have you done every day for the last 6 months?" And right there, the silence begins. Because potential is not measured by inspired days. It is measured by the days you have no inspiration but still show up. The truth is this: motivation comes and goes. Emotions change constantly. Circumstances are never stable. If your life depends on those things, you will never go far. The best don't ask, "Should I do it today?" They decide in advance. I am someone who shows up every day. I call that non-negotiable discipline. Not extreme discipline, not working yourself to exhaustion, but a very simple commitment. No matter what today is like, I keep the rhythm. Maybe slower, maybe tired, maybe imperfect, but I don't disappear. Many people fail not because they quit completely, but because they keep disappearing and coming back. They work for a while, then stop, then start over again. And every time they restart, they have to fight themselves one more time. Consistent people don't need to restart. They continue. I want you to picture it like this. Consistency is like compound interest. At first, you can barely see anything. Day after day, you do the right thing, but the results are very small. And that's when most people walk away. They say, "It seems like this isn't working." But the best are different. They understand that what you don't see today is quietly laying the foundation for tomorrow. I once told my students, "You don't need to do more than others. You just need to do it longer. Longer than your emotions. Longer than boredom. Longer than the phase of not being recognized. And when you do it long enough, something strange happens. Even on your worst day, you still perform better than most people do on their best day. Not because you're better, but because your standards have been repeated so many times. If you're listening to this and feel like you often start strong but struggle to maintain the rhythm, subscribe to continue this journey with me. We're not chasing temporary motivation, we're building a resilient person. Consistency is not flashy. It doesn't create shocking moments. It doesn't make others admire you immediately, but it creates a gap that cannot be closed. Consistent people don't need big wins. They just don't quit day after day, week after week, year after year. And then one day, people look at you and say, "You're so lucky." No one sees the days you kept going, when there were no results. No one sees the moments you continued, when there was nothing to celebrate. I want to ask you one question. Are you living like someone who tries occasionally, or like someone who shows up consistently? Because life doesn't care what abilities you have. It only responds to what you do repeatedly. If you could choose just one small action that you could do every day for the next 30 days, what would it be? Not a big action, not a perfect plan, just an action you won't quit. Talent gets you noticed. Consistency gets you chosen. When consistency becomes part of who you are, you no longer need to force yourself. You start doing it because that's who you are. And when that happens, a new question appears. If I'm already consistent, do I have enough commitment to go as deep as necessary? That's where we're going next, where very few people dare to step. Principle 4, obsession with alignment, not balance. There is a word that many people are afraid of, and they use it as a warning, obsession. They say, don't be too obsessed. Live a balanced life. Don't be extreme. It sounds wise. It sounds mature. But I've observed life long enough to know one thing. No one becomes the best by doing everything halfway. I'm not saying you have to burn out. I'm not saying you have to sacrifice everything. But I am saying this very clearly. You cannot reach excellence with superficial effort. The best don't live balanced lives in the usual sense. They live aligned lives. And when the direction is right, everything else revolves around it. I've met people who told me, Jim, I want to be successful, but I don't want too much pressure. I understand that feeling. But then I ask them, do you want extraordinary results? If the answer is yes, then you must accept one truth. Extraordinary results require a level of commitment that the majority are not comfortable with. Look at any field. Top athletes, builders of great businesses, masters of rare skills. They don't work only when it's convenient. They organize their lives around what matters most. Not because they are unbalanced, but because they have chosen priorities. The problem for most people is not that they are too obsessed. It's that they are fragmented. A little for work, a little for dreams, a little for entertainment, little for others. In the end, nothing goes deep enough to create a breakthrough. Their lives are like a stream, split into too many branches, and no branch is strong enough to flow far. The best are different. They don't do many things. They do a few things very seriously. They don't ask, what should I do today? They ask, what deserves my best energy? And then they build their lives around that answer. I want you to picture this. Properly directed obsession is like a laser beam. It doesn't scatter in every direction. It focuses. And because it focuses, it can cut through things that ordinary light cannot. On the other hand, too much balance is like dim light. It shines everywhere, but it's not strong enough to change anything. Many people are afraid of being called too much, too serious, too disciplined, too focused. But you should ask yourself, who is calling you too much? Someone living the life you want, or someone avoiding their own potential? I have never seen average people complain about being too disciplined, but I have seen many people regret not daring to go deep when they were young. Properly directed obsession does not mean abandoning family, health, or values. It means you know how to say no to things that dilute you. You don't allow distractions to control your day. You design your schedule around what matters most, not because you are selfish, but because you are serious about who you want to become. I once told my students, you don't need more time. You need more focus. Everyone has the same amount of time, but not the same amount of energy. The best protect their energy by living selectively. They don't show up everywhere. They don't accept every invitation. They don't try to please everyone. They do one very hard thing. They disappoint themselves less than they disappoint others. Answer this honestly for yourself. What in your life do you know is most important, but you are still giving it only your leftover time and energy? If you don't change your priorities, your life will not change. Excellence does not come from balance. It comes from focused alignment over a long enough period of time. When you allow yourself to go deep, something strange will happen. You won't have to try so hard anymore. You won't be pulled in every direction. You begin to live with clarity. And when clarity appears, you will understand this. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every path needs to be tried. Only a few things do, but if you take them all the way, they will change your entire life. And then another question will come. If I am focused deeply enough, do I have the patience to go through the phase where results have not yet appeared? That is where we will go next, where the best learn to marry the process instead of obsessing over the outcome. Principle 5, marry the process, not the outcome. There's a very subtle trap I've seen thousands of people fall into. And what's dangerous is, it looks like ambition. They talk to me about goals, about numbers, about the results they want to achieve. But when I look at their daily lives, I see something else. They love the outcome, but they don't love the daily work required to get there. And that's why they don't go far. I used to be in that exact place. There was a period in my life when I thought that if I just wanted it badly enough, if I just desired it enough, the results would come. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't reward the person who wants the most. Life rewards the person who does the right things for long enough. So many people wake up every morning and ask themselves, did I get closer to my goal today? If the answer is no, they get discouraged. They doubt, they pull back. But that question is the wrong question. The right question should be, did I do the right things today that someone who achieves that goal would do? Results are something you can't fully control. The process is, you can't control when results show up. You can't control how other people respond. You can't control the speed at which life pays you back, but you can control whether you show up today, whether you do the right work today, whether you keep your standards today. The best understand this very clearly. They don't wake up to get results. They wake up to execute their ritual. And that ritual, repeated day after day, creates results as an inevitable consequence. I want you to picture it like this. Results are like fruit on a tree. You can't pull a bigger fruit up with your hands. You can only water consistently. Take care of the soil. Be patient through the season. The person who stands under the tree staring at the fruit will go crazy. The person who tends the tree every day will eventually reach a point where they don't even need to look. The fruit falls into their hands. Many people quit, not because they're doing it wrong, but because they quit too soon. They can't tolerate the feeling of doing the right things and seeing nothing yet. And I tell them, if you need results to keep going, you'll never go far enough to get results. The best don't ask, when will I succeed? They ask, did I respect the process today? And they respect it, even when it's boring, even when it's repetitive, even when no one recognizes it. Here's a paradox you need to remember. People who obsess over outcomes often perform worse than people who focus on the process, because they work in anxiety, they work under pressure, they work with the fear of not being enough. But people who love the process, they work with steadiness. They don't rush, they don't panic, they don't let one bad day destroy the entire journey. I once said, success is a few small disciplines done every day, not explosive moments, not rare leaps forward, just the right things done long enough that life can't ignore you. Look at your life right now. How many times have you thought, maybe this isn't for me? Not because you're doing it wrong, but because you haven't given it enough time to pay you back. If you stopped measuring results for the next 30 days and only focused on doing the process right every day, how would your life change? Results are the reward for the person who doesn't abandon the process. When you marry the process, you're no longer dragged around by emotions. You don't panic when things are slow. You don't get drunk on speed when things move fast. You move steadily and you go far. And when you've gone long enough, you'll realize something very important. The process doesn't just create results. It creates the person. And then a new question appears. If I've stayed with the process, do I dare to put myself into situations that force me to grow faster? That's where we're going next, where the best don't avoid pressure, they actively seek it out. Principle 6, seek pressure, don't avoid it. There is a very natural human reflex. Avoid pressure. We avoid hard things. Avoid situations where we might fail. Avoid challenges that expose our weaknesses. And then we call it wise. But after many years of observing life, I can tell you something very clearly. The best people don't dodge pressure, they grow because of it. I used to think a good life was a life with fewer problems, less stress, less pressure. But then I realized something paradoxical. An easy life rarely creates a strong person. The biggest turning points in my life didn't come from peaceful days, but from seasons when I was pushed out of my comfort zone. Pressure is like weight in the gym. No one gets stronger by lifting light weights forever. You don't grow through comfort. You grow when your muscles are challenged. Life is the same. If you always choose the easy path, you will become weak at the most important moments. So many people tell me, Jim, I'm not ready. I understand. But I also know this. Readiness doesn't appear before pressure. Readiness is created in pressure. If you wait until you feel completely confident, you'll wait your whole life. The best don't ask, is this comfortable? They ask, will this force me to grow? And if the answer is yes, they step forward, even if their heart is still pounding. Pressure reveals the truth. It shows you which skills are still weak. It shows you whether your discipline is real. It shows you who you are when things don't go your way. Many people are afraid of that, because the truth is sometimes uncomfortable. But the best are different. They want to know the truth early. I once said, pressure doesn't change who you are. It only reveals who you've become. If you build discipline in silence, pressure becomes your stage. If you live loosely, pressure will break you. Many people think avoiding pressure is protecting themselves. But in reality, they're just postponing growth. Life will put pressure on your shoulders anyway. Sooner or later, the only difference is, do you choose the timing or does it choose for you? Seeking pressure doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean self-destruction. It means You choose the harder option instead of the convenient one. You walk into rooms where you're not the best yet. You set standards higher than what feels comfortable, not to prove anything to others, but to expand your own limits. I often advise this. If you want to know where you really are, look at the level of pressure you're carrying every day. No pressure, no growth. No growth, no breakthrough. Look back at your life. When was the last time you chose the harder thing? When was the last time you put yourself in a situation where you could fail but could also be changed by it? If it's been too long, that's a signal worth thinking about. A question for you. Is there a challenge you know you need to face, but you've been avoiding it just because it scares you? Write it down. Not to do it immediately, but to stop pretending it isn't there. Pressure isn't the enemy. It's the test of how prepared you are. When you start actively seeking pressure, something important will happen. You won't panic when things get hard. You won't collapse when you're tested. You begin to trust your own capacity to endure. And when that belief forms, you'll want to do one more thing. Understand the game more deeply instead of just reacting to it. That's where we're going next, where the best don't just do more. They understand the game they're stepping into. Principle 7, study the game like your life depends on it. There's a mistake I've seen repeat for years. People work very hard, but they don't truly understand the game they're playing. They act a lot, but think little. They stay busy, but they aren't sharp. And then they're surprised when they don't break through. I learned this very early. Misdirected effort only creates exhaustion, not excellence. You can't become the best in a game you don't understand. A lot of people think doing more is enough. More hours, more effort, more sacrifice. But if you're climbing the wrong ladder, every step forward only takes you farther from where you need to go. The best don't just do. They study before they do. They ask questions. What rules does this game run by? Who is winning and why? Where is the real leverage? What are the common mistakes? While most people rush into action to feel like they're making progress, the best step back to understand more deeply. I once said, don't just work hard, work smart, and then work hard in the right place. That difference determines whether you merely exist in the game or you lead it. People who don't study the game live in reaction. They react to the market, react to other people, react to problems. But the best are different. They stay ahead, not because they guess, but because they've seen patterns that others haven't noticed yet. I want you to picture it like this. If life is a chessboard, most people are moving pieces without knowing the rules. They're shocked when they get checkmated. They get angry when they lose, but they never learned how to play. The best are different. They learn every move. They study their opponents. They remember their losses and pull lessons from them. I've seen talented people get passed by people who understood the game better, not because they were less intelligent, but because they weren't willing to learn deeply. They act based on feelings. They decide based on hope. They change strategy based on fear. The best don't do that. They learn from people who are better than them, not to admire, but to decode. They don't ask, did this person succeed because of luck? They ask, what system is behind these results? Studying the game isn't something you do once. It's a lifelong habit. Every result is data. Every mistake is a lesson. Every failure is a signal. The best aren't embarrassed that they don't know yet. They're embarrassed if they refuse to learn. They read, they observe, they analyze, but most importantly, they apply. Because knowledge that isn't used is just a burden for the ego. I often say, you don't get paid for what you know. You get paid for what you can do with what you know. Studying the game only matters when it changes how you act. Look back at your life. Are you repeating the same mistake just because you've never stopped to analyze it? Are you working out of habit instead of understanding? If so, that's not a sign you're weak. It's a sign it's time to upgrade your thinking. Answer this for yourself. If you spent the next 30 days only studying more deeply the field you're pursuing, what would you learn first? Not more motivation, but how the game actually works. You can't win a game you've never learned how to play. When you start to understand the game, you won't panic in the face of change anymore. You won't chase trends. You won't react in fear. You start moving strategically. And then a deeper question appears. If I understand the game, am I steady enough on the inside to not sabotage myself when pressure and emotions show up? That's where we're going next, where the best learn to control their inner world before they try to control anything outside. Principle 8. control your inner world before you try to control anything else. There's a truth very few people want to admit. Most people don't lose because of circumstances, they lose because of themselves. Not because they lack opportunities, not because they aren't smart enough, but because they can't control their inner state when life starts applying pressure. I've seen this repeat hundreds of times. Same circumstances, same market, same challenge. One person stays calm and moves forward. One person panics and self-destructs. The difference isn't outside. The difference is inside. I used to think success was knowing what to do, but the further I've gone, the more I've realized. Knowing what to do is the easy part. Keeping yourself doing it when emotions rise is the hard part. So many people have a great plan, but when they're tired, they quit. When they're doubted, they shrink. When they're criticized, they react the wrong way. And one wrong reaction can be enough to set them back for months. The best aren't people who have no emotions. They're people who don't let emotions drive their lives. They still get scared. They still doubt. They still get tired. But they don't allow those things to become reasons. I want you to understand something very important. You can't build a stable life with a chaotic inner world. You can have a great strategy. You can have great skills. But if you're always uneasy on the inside, every decision you make will be colored by fear. Look at the moments you've regretted. You said what you shouldn't have said. You quit too early. You made a rushed decision. Most of those moments didn't come from a lack of knowledge. They came from a lack of emotional control. The best understand this. Before they control their work, they must control themselves. They build rituals to keep themselves steady, quiet time, moments of reflection, a structured rhythm of life, not to escape the world, but to stop the world from pulling their strings. I once said, if you don't take control of your day, that day will take control of you. Your day is made up of hundreds of tiny reactions, and every reaction is a vote for the person you're becoming. The best don't react immediately. They pause, they breathe, they observe. They ask themselves, is this reaction coming from my standard or from my emotion? That pause is where real power lives. I want you to picture it like this. Your inner world is like the steering wheel of a car. The road can be rough, the weather can be bad, but if the steering wheel shakes, you'll soon end up off the road. You can't control the weather, you can't control the road, but you must control the steering wheel. Many people try to fix the outside world before they fix the inside. They change jobs, they change plans, they change environments, but they carry the same chaotic inner world with them. And the result doesn't change. The best are different. They build inner strength like a skill, knowing when to stop, knowing when to keep going, knowing when to stay silent, not because they're weak, but because they are disciplined with their own reactions. I often tell my students, you don't need to control everything. You just need to control how you respond. When you can do that, everything else becomes much simpler. A question for you. When things don't go your way, what is your first reaction usually? Rushing? Defending yourself? Quitting? Or pausing and choosing again? The strongest person isn't the one with no emotions, but the one who isn't controlled by emotions. When you start mastering your inner world, you'll notice something very different. You won't get swept up in chaos anymore. You won't fear pressure anymore. You won't panic when things change. You become steady. And when you're steady enough on the inside, a very big decision will appear. If I've come this far, will I still leave myself an exit to go back to average? That's where we're going next, where the best close every door of retreat and walk forward with total commitment. Principle 9, eliminate Plan B. There's a truth that isn't easy to hear, but if you want to become the best in any field, you need to face it early. Anytime you leave yourself an exit, you've quietly given yourself permission not to go all the way. We often call Plan B wise, safe, prepared for every situation. But in many cases I've witnessed, Plan B isn't wisdom, it's hesitation disguised as logic. I've met many smart people. They have plans. They have backup options. They always know what they'll do if things don't go as expected. And because of that, they rarely make things truly work. Because deep down, they've never put their entire self on a single decision. Plan B isn't loud. It doesn't yell when you're tired. It just whispers. It's okay if you stop today. I have other options. And that whisper weakens your will little by little. I lived for a long time with one foot on both sides. Part of me wanted to move forward. Part of me wanted to stay safe. I worked, I tried, but I never went all in, not because I was lazy, but because I always left the door open to turn back. And the result was this: I moved much slower than my true potential. The best aren't the people who aren't afraid of failure. They're the people who decided that turning back is no longer an option. They accept the risk of moving forward because the bigger risk to them is living their whole life never knowing how far they could have gone. Let me say this very clearly. You can't step into a bigger future while still holding tightly to an older version of yourself. Every plan B you keep is a rope tying you to who you used to be. And when things get hard, you will grab that rope. I've seen this repeat in every field. The business person who always keeps a just-in-case job. The person pursuing a new skill who always leaves themselves a reason to quit. The person who wants to change their life who always says, if it doesn't work out, it's fine. But that attitude takes the weight out of the decision. When you haven't fully decided, your brain won't operate at full capacity. It doesn't need to be creative. It doesn't need to be resilient. It doesn't need to be accountable. But when you close every door of retreat, something very different happens. The pressure goes up, but with that pressure, your focus goes up too. You start seeing more clearly. You get less distracted. You waste less energy on what ifs. Not because you're guaranteed to succeed, but because you've decided quitting is no longer on the menu. I often say, when you truly decide, life starts demanding that you grow up. And that demand makes you stronger. No more easy road. No more shortcuts. No more room to blame. Only one question remains. Who do I have to become to deserve this path? Many people are afraid to eliminate Plan B because they think it's too reckless. But look straight at the truth. Is living halfway your whole life really safe? Is never daring to reach your full capacity really wise? There are risks you have to accept. If you don't want to carry regret, eliminating Plan B doesn't mean you don't prepare. It means you prepare to move forward, not to retreat. You prepare your skills. You prepare your discipline. You prepare the mindset of responsibility. But you stop preparing reasons to quit. The best don't say, I'll try. They say, I'll make it work. Not because they're sure everything will go smoothly, but because they're sure of one thing. They're not going back to the old version of themselves. A question for you. In the most important area of your life, which door are you keeping open to retreat? A safe option? A reasonable excuse? A just-in-case it doesn't work backup plan? You don't have to close it today, but you do need to look it in the eye. There is no big commitment if you still leave a road back. When you start eliminating Plan B, you will feel afraid. That's normal. Fear is a sign you're stepping out of the average zone. But at the same time, another kind of power appears. The power of someone who has decided to go all the way down the path they chose. And when you've gone that far, paid the price, carried the pressure, refused to turn back, one final question, deeper than all the rest, will appear. If I've built everything with that level of determination, am I building it on a foundation strong enough to last? That's where we're going next, where the best understand this. Talent and discipline can take you high, but only character keeps you there. Principle 10. Build your name on character, not convenience. In the end, after everything has been said, after skill has been trained, after discipline has been built, after you've carried pressure, committed, and refused to turn back, only one thing decides whether you truly become the best. Not talent, not speed, not short-term results, but character. I've met many people who move very fast, very impressive, very noticed, but then they disappear. Not because they weren't capable, but because they built on convenience, not on principles. They do the right thing when it's convenient. They keep their word when it's easy. They're kind when it costs them nothing. But life doesn't run forever on convenience. There's a moment everyone will face when telling the truth costs you an advantage, when keeping your word costs you something, when doing the right thing makes you slower than others. And in that moment, your character is revealed. I want you to understand this. Reputation is what other people say about you. Character is what you carry when no one is watching. You can fool the world for a while, but you can't fool yourself. And sooner or later, life will reflect back the exact person you've built. The best aren't only remembered for what they can do. They're remembered for who they are when no one is supervising. When they have power, they don't abuse it. When they win, they don't become arrogant. When they're wrong, they don't run from it. Not because they're perfect, but because they're honest with their own standards. I once said, success isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by the person you become. If that person lacks character, success becomes a burden. You'll always have to defend yourself, always have to hide, always have to fear being exposed. Many people think character is morality and has nothing to do with success. But in reality, it's the opposite. Character is the strongest long-term advantage you have. Skills can be copied, strategies can be learned, talent can be surpassed. But durable character creates trust, and trust opens doors that talent cannot open. The best don't ask, is this beneficial for me? They first ask, is this aligned with my standard? And once the standard is clear, the decision becomes simple, not easy, but simple. Look back at your life. How many times have you chosen convenience instead of what's right? No one knows. No one sees. But you know, and every time you do that, you're casting a vote for who you'll become in the future. Character isn't built in big decisions. It's built in small ones. Keeping your word when no one reminds you. Doing the right thing when no one checks. Not cutting corners when you could. Those things don't make noise, but they create a foundation that can't be shaken. I've seen people who had everything and then lost everything because of one moment of trading away their character. And I've also seen people who moved slower, less flashy, but stayed solid for a lifetime because they refused to compromise with themselves. Be honest with yourself. If everything outside disappeared, money, reputation, position, would the person you have left be strong enough for you to be proud of? If the answer makes you silent, that's not failure. That's an invitation to rebuild the right way. Reputation can take you high, but only character keeps you there. When you build your life on character, you don't have to run. You don't fear being passed. You don't fear being found out. You don't fear time. Because time always takes the side of those who build it right. And here, after you've heard all 10 principles, you can see one thing clearly. Becoming the best isn't a technique. It's a decision about how you live, a decision to raise your standards, a decision to build in silence, a decision to be consistent, a decision to go deep, a decision to carry pressure, a decision to understand the game, a decision to master yourself, a decision not to turn back, and finally, a decision to become someone trustworthy. At this point, if you're still here, I believe you didn't watch this video just for entertainment. You're here for a deeper reason, because somewhere inside you, there's a part of you that knows very clearly, life can be more than this. We've gone through 10 principles, not 10 tips, not 10 get-rich-quick secrets, but 10 decisions about how to live. If you listen closely, you'll realize something. None of these principles requires you to be special. They only require you to be consistent. Life doesn't change in a day, but it changes direction with one decision. Not a big decision to impress people, but a small decision to live correctly. You don't need to become the best starting tomorrow. You just need to become more serious today than you were yesterday. That's how every great person is built. Not loud, not flashy, but real. I want to leave you with one final thought. When life comes to an end, people won't ask you where you started. They'll look at who you became. You won't be remembered for what you planned to do. You'll be remembered for what you did every day. Be honest with yourself. If 10 years from now you look back at today, what do you want to be proud of? Not that you knew more, but that you lived differently. And I want to close with a line I believe is enough to take you very far if you truly live by it. If you change, everything will change with you. You and I have the same gift. It's today. Use it wisely. And if you want to continue this journey, stay with me for the next lessons. Like and subscribe to the channel if you feel you can learn something more from it. See you in the next video.